Alrighty, hi everyone. I just want to kind of go through my lesson plan. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So for my lesson plan, I'm going to be doing a second grade class right now. I am in a class that is a 12-1-2. There's 10 students who will be present for the lesson. So just to go over kind of my objectives first. So students are going to be able to decipher what time it is on a digital and analog clock. Students will be able to formulate the time based on hours and minutes to tell what time it is. And students will be able to distinguish minutes using multiples of 5 to tell time. So looking a little bit more into this, I just kind of want to go into my standards. The standard for second grade in New York State is tell and write time from an analog and digital clocks to the nearest 5 minutes using AM and PM. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of use a hook, and I'm going to share my screen quickly of my actual HLP lesson plan. Alrighty, so for this one, you are going to see this is my lesson plan. The Danielson rubric domain that I'm using are managing student behavior through behavior bucks used throughout my lesson. Engaging students in learning. So I'm going to be using technology and interactive tools such as an interactive clock and using assessment and instruction. So you'll see at the end of my lesson, I have an exit slip with self-assessment. In terms of HLPs, the type of design that I'm using is using different modes. So videos, games, anchor charts, and also being able to have them sing a song to memorize. Using multiple sources as a comprehensive understanding. So I'm going to be using different strategies. Some students might get differentiation materials such as a clock of their own or a filled out clock before working by themselves. And then HLP 8, positive and constructive feedback. So I'll be collecting their work and providing feedback in a timely manner, both their game and their independent worksheet. So just looking through 10 students, as I was talking about before, there are 2 TAs, sometimes 3 in our room. So it just depends the day. They usually go around and help everyone. I call on students to participate. They get behavior bucks if the desired behavior is called upon. Kind of went through the left-hand objective and standards. Prior knowledge, they need to know 5. So 5, 10, 15, 20. Comparing numbers such as 6 and 7 to know which one to scoop back to in terms of time and to be able to place numbers correctly. Analog clock, digital clock, manipulatives of 5, hour hand, minute hand, all different types of vocab that we're using. Materials and resources. So you'll see in my presentation a little bit. There's YouTube's links, there's different resources such as worksheets, and I'll go through that in a bit. Motivation. So they need to know how to do this through the analog and digital clock. During first grade, they do learn somewhat about this, but not many of them could tell time. So their motivation could be to apply it into real life. Also, they are motivated by their behavior bucks. So with the desired behaviors, we'll be able to give out the bucks to help them. This kind of goes through my entire lesson. So I'll show you a little bit at the end what it's going to look like. But the hook is I'm going to introduce time both digitally and analog clock to show them. And then the intro is going to be a YouTube video. It's about 2 minutes long. It really describes the big hand, the little hand, has a catchy tune to hook them in. The new concept, we're going to start with a sing along. It's to the wheels of the bus. I'm first going to sing it, then they will, and then totally by themselves. They really respond well to different types of songs, to movement. So I think this is a good way for them to memorize and engage. Then I'm going to display an anchor chart. So we'll go through together as a class, the minute hand, the hour hand, how to label, what they mean, and how we have to count by fives. After this, I'm going to try to ask some of the crowd the higher order thinking questions. So where do things go? Can you visualize it? At what time does something happen? And things along that line. For the modeling think aloud portion, I'm going to hand out a worksheet where the first 3 I'm going to model. I'm going to show how you label the little hand and the big hand, hours and minutes, how to go by fives to count around, and then eventually getting your time. After the 3 examples, which I'll still call on students to help me during, I will then send them by themselves to independently practice. Of course, TAs still roll around, and I'm going to do kind of like an assessment, formative assessment as I go around to see what they are doing. So if their body language is slumped, are they staring into space? Are they totally counting the wrong way, using 10s instead of 5s, things along those lines? So that's our guided practice. So that's going to be the next 6 clocks. Once they're done for independent practice, they're going to use 2 dice, which I'll provide in a worksheet, and they're able to engage with this as a fun way to talk about time. So they get to roll the dice. One dice is going to be the hour. So if they roll 6, they're going to put their little hand on the 6. If they roll a 3 on their next dice, they can either put it on the 3 on the clock. I'm not really going to be too picky with this. It's just something fun to get them engaged. And also, I will collect this to see if they're still doing it right, the scooping to tell what time it is, and things along that line. To close the lesson, I'm going to have them complete an exit ticket. It's a blank clock. So I'm going to say a time to them. They have to draw it and write it. I want to collect this as a summative assessment so I can see kind of where they're at, especially with something that I gave them. And also, I can provide feedback. In that, at the bottom is a self-assessment, so they can circle how they feel. So do they get it? Are they a little unsure, need more help? And also not a thumbs up, thumbs down, so that the other students don't influence them. These are different questions I'm going to ask during the lesson as we go through. Formative assessment, I talked about a little bit before. During the guided practice, I'm going to be walking around, taking quick observation and kind of seeing if I have to pull anybody, is there a concept that's totally being missed? Things along those lines. Differentiated instruction. So of course, TA assistants, my 2 focus learners are Sophia and Matthew. Sophia is a little bit more, wants to move around a lot, not as always focused. So I'm going to provide her a already differentiated sheet that has the clock written out for her so she can use this as a reference point. While I'm observing, if I see that she cannot get it with just the paper, I do have a handheld clock that I can give her to kind of move along as we go. For Matthew, he really responds well to visuals. He should be able to do this, but being on task is a big problem for him. So he has visuals on his desk that I can use to redirect him, but also I can provide him the one-on-one assistance as well as the already filled in clock. Leveled materials, so the TAs are going to walk around as well, kind of helping out where they're needed. This group does not do group work just due to behaviors and different strategies. So during the whole group instruction, I try to get them all engaged as one. Formative and summative assessments, as I talked about before. Opportunities for practice. So they're going to be able to still do it as we're going through to mark up their papers as we go through. There is an enrichment activity at the end. It's a game that they can play on their own time. So they can take this home with their moms or dads and things along those lines. And then, of course, the exit slip at the end. Behavior box is always going to be my classroom management system. The kids respond really well to this. If they do the desired behavior, they get $1. They get to put in their wallets, which they cash in at the end of the week. Right now, there's no ELL students in my class, but if there were, things to consider is more of providing culturally relevant things. So if it's a word problem, making sure that if I do need any translation, I can put it in. And then, of course, they can also get the manipulatives because the numbers are a little bit different for our ELLs. So that's just something to think about. I'm going to flip my screen over just back to my slides. So this is what I'm actually going to be using during the lesson. Of course, we talked about before the hook. This is the YouTube video, my clock song. So every student's going to get one of these. The Wheels on the Bus theme, just the music is here. So we're going to sing it together. The hands on the clock and XYZ goes along the lines. My anchor chart that I'm going to be having up there with them to look at the small hand, which is the hours, and the big hand, the minutes, kind of going through before I even model so they understand what's happening, where numbers are placed, how to count by fives, and so on. The interactive clock, as I was talking about before. So this is when I'm going to call on the students to kind of have them help me. I can move it in any which way that I want. So as they help me answer it, I then can show the material. So if we're correct, the big reveal, things along those lines. This is going to be the guided practice. So these top 3 are the ones I'm going to model, labeling the big hand and the small hand. These 6 are what they're going to do on their own with TA, assistant, and manipulatives. And then this is the roll the time game. So again, they're rolling the 2 dice that I'm providing them. They can draw. I don't expect them to finish all of these. This is almost more to see how many they can get in the allotted time. I will be collecting these for the summative assessment. Exit ticket, so telling time, the teacher, am going to produce one more time. Say in this case, it's 9:45. I expect them to draw the little hand, the big hand, label it. I may have them right at the fives along the clock. I'm not sure yet. I want to see kind of as we go through the lesson. I can use this too in my summative assessment to see if I have to pull groups. If the whole class is missing the counting by fives and is counting by tens, that's something I need to reteach. And then, of course, at the bottom, that rating self-assessment. So I think this is a good way to do it so that A, it's written down, but B, they don't feel pressured by their peers if they do feel like, oh, why am I the only one not getting it? In terms of enrichment, this is a math games website. So they can go on at home, or if we have more time at the end, they can go through and play the game. So they can, it's just loading right now, but they can go through, it shows you a time. And then you're able
What time
to
does the clock show?
select it. With all that being said, just kind of showing my differentiation, behavioral and visual reminders for Matthew O, who is classified as autistic. He will have TA assistants and of course those manipulatives. And Sophia will have the manipulatives as well, a filled out clock. TA assistants will be provided around the room. And then of course, as I am observing, I can always pull students myself. So I'm excited to present my lesson. Thanks.